everybody, my name is Noémi, and this is episode 2 of the Simple Begiknits podcast. I want to take a second to thank everybody for tuning in and for encouraging me to continue on with this podcast. It was a really nerve-wracking undertaking, but the response was so overwhelming that I felt encouraged to keep going and to keep building this community. And so far all the comments have been so lovely and kind and very helpful. Thank you to everybody who left recommendations. Somebody mentioned the Nimble Needles podcast, and I've been listening to them ever since whenever I have a question for a new technique. And yeah, it was so heartwarming to see the response to episode 1. So hopefully you enjoy episode 2. Today, as the start of a new year, I wanted to show you what I've been working on over the holidays. I don't have any finished objects to show you today, since I've finished everything I needed to do over the holidays for my gift knits, and for the new year I wanted to start anew. So let's get started with my whips. The project that I've been working on the most in this new year has been the Petiteknit Terrazzo Slipover. Sorry, that's the back. This is the front. I've almost completed the body down to the front twisted rib edging. I'm now currently working on the back edge of the split hem. Next, I'll have the armhole ribbing and the turtleneck collar to finish in twisted rib, and that'll be it. So I started this on December 31st, and I've been working on it fairly consistently, and it's growing really quickly. It's been a super fun piece to knit up. It's my first, I believe it's a saddle shoulder construction, where you work on the back first and then add on the shoulders and the front, and then work on the body. It's been really interesting. Also, my first twisted rib, which has been so fun to work on. Oh, take that out. It's been really fun to work on and to learn how to do. I'm a continental knitter, and I feel like it's a style of knitting that's really, that just makes this twisted rib stitch easier to do. It feels almost like a dance with the needles, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm knitting this in no.02. I believe it's shade number 4. So another thing that's been new for me in this is doing a lot of yarn management and yarn surgery, I guess, where this piece is knitted flat at first and then knitted in the round. I had parts that were, the stripes were pretty thick, and then I figured once I started knitting the round they'd get thinner, so I'd have to go through all the skeins and pick out the color I'd want, just join the new yarn on to keep the stripes as consistent as possible. Yeah, so far it's working out fairly well. I'm loving the feeling of this yarn. It's just very, I believe it's an Aran weight yarn, and it's just very chunky, and you can feel how just thick and cozy it's going to be, which I feel like is going to be perfect for a slipover. Next up, oh, and I believe I'm working this in the size medium. So next up, I have started on, it's not very much, but an Oslo hat from the Oslo hat Mohair edition by Petiteknit. So I'm still working on the brim. I have a couple more centimeters to knit before it's folded together. And I'm knitting this in Patton's wool yarn. And the mohair that I found and started working with is, stand by, the Lang Yarns Mohair Luxe Super Kid Mohair, and this is in the shade 14. So the reason why I say I started with this mohair is it's a not multicolored, but I guess striped mohair, where it has bits of pink and bits of purple. And this yarn store I was at only had the one ball, so I bought it because I wanted to get started on this hat. And sure enough, I've now run out of the bright pink portions of the mohair, and I didn't feel like going in with the purple. So I went to my trusty Espace Tricot and did an online order for this beauty. That is the Emilia et Philomène yarn in the color Stay Home. Yeah, and so I've spoken about them before. I have their merino for another project I'll be talking about shortly. And this mohair is just so beautiful. It's just a really nice neon pink, and I think it's going to be a beautiful statement piece once this is all knitted together. My winter coat and boots and scarves are all fairly neutral, so I just wanted to bring in a little bit of a pop of color to brighten up my winter days. And so that's that. My final whip that I've been working on, this is ever since I started the Slipover. This one's been a bit, it's been taking a bit of back burner, but I have started on my Ozetta Moonset Pullover. Let me see. I'm knitting this in the Emilia and Philomène merino in, I believe it was Dusty Lavender. I spoke about it in my first podcast, as well as in knitting for Olive, kid silk mohair, soft silk mohair in Dusty Rose. And I just love how these two colors are knitting up together. It almost has like a silvery purple color to it, with like, when you look closer, you can see just little flecks of pink from the silk strands of the mohair. It's absolutely beautiful. So I've knitted part of the back, and I've started on some of the ribbing at the collar, and I think I'm now at the part where I need to assemble the two together to keep working, and that had been a little bit daunting for me, so I put it on hold and picked up the Slipover. And I'll get back to this soon, but I'm just nervous about assembling them together and doing it incorrectly and having to pull it apart, because it's been going so well so far. But I'm really excited to get this, sorry for the jingling, I'm really excited to get this going again, because it's just like such a luxe, silky fabric, and I'm loving the drape of it so far. So I'm excited to see more of it come together. And yeah, that's all I have to say for this one. So it's pretty quick so far. In terms of acquisitions, I have two that I'm so excited about. The first one, I've got some Knitting for Olive merino and soft silk mohair, in both in the color Dusty Olive. So I will be knitting with these two the Handmade by Florence Robinson wrap cardigan. If you haven't seen any of her podcasts, I would highly recommend it. Her style is just so beautiful and very feminine and dainty, and I love all her pieces that she puts out. I'm really excited about this cardigan. I think it's going to be a really unique piece in my wardrobe, and it feels like this will just be so nice and comforting, and a nice kind of transition piece between winter and spring. So looking forward to getting this cast on. And the second piece that I'm really excited about is the Espace Tricot Meet Me at Midnight sweater. It's a free pattern created by Noémi from Espace Tricot, and I got the light pink kit from them. So it's knit in both the Fuafua Moondrake Fuafua cashmere yarn. So this is a 70% brushed cashmere, 30% superwash merino yarn, and it is like a cloud. It is like you know those cotton balls that you can use to remove makeup or nail polish? This feels like an even softer, fluffier version of that. It is absolutely gorgeous. This is in the shade Rose Quartz. So the way this sweater is knit is most of the cashmere goes along the top of the yoke, so it sits right in the most sensitive parts of your body. And then the rest of the sweater is knit in the Woolstock Light Fingering yarn in the color Quartz Crystal, or in the shade Quartz Crystal. So with these two striped together, the majority of the cashmere sits on top, and then as you go down on the body, it gets striped in with the Woolstock. So I'm really excited to see this one come together as well. It's just going to be so light and comforting, and contrary to a lot of popular patterns that have been put out, this one doesn't have that much positive ease, which is great. I love oversized sweaters and slipovers and cardigans, but it's nice to have a piece that's a little bit more form-fitting, a little less casual, say. So I'm very excited to get this in my wardrobe. So my final two acquisitions are not yarn, but more like tools. So I got a ball winder and swift, and I got the ChiaoGoo red lace twist needle set in the size small. So it's needle sizes from 2.75 millimeters all the way to 5 millimeters. It comes with a couple different cable sizes, as well as pins, as well as needle gauge and some stitch markers. This is the now universal symbol for stitch markers, apparently. I do declare. And yeah, so I'm very excited for this. I started using it on my Terrazzo Slipover, and it is working out like a dream. So yeah, that's pretty great. As well as the ball and swift, the ball winder and swift I've used a couple of times already, and I'm so glad I made that investment. I didn't get a great one by any means, just like the one that would ship the quickest, and yeah, it's been working out really well. I highly recommend those tools if that's something that you are looking into or interested in. It is worth the investment, unless you have a local yarn store that has that accessible and handy to you. Yeah, great purchase. 10 out of 10. So since this is a new year, and 2023 will be my first full year of knitting, I wanted to take some time to plan what my intentions are for this coming year, and what I would like to work on. So far, most of my knits have been either sweaters. I've made one cardigan, and I'm now making one slipover. So I would like to branch out a little bit more, although I feel like I still have so many techniques to learn. I feel like other garments will be able to scratch that itch for me. So I bought the 52 Weeks of Socks book from Lina Publishing, and I will be looking forward to starting on socks this year, which is very daunting for me. I don't know what it is about socks, but something about them just feels so much more difficult than a sweater. Maybe it's just the size, but whenever I hear people talking about sock knitting, I feel like there are a million ways to do the toe, the heel, the cast on, and that's just maybe a little bit overwhelming at first. So I'll look through the book and try to find probably the easiest pattern to start with and dip my toes, pun intended, on making socks. That's my big project that I want to tackle this year, is just making a lot of socks and learning more and more techniques. I recently watched Kayla Marissa's video from the Marissa Made podcast on the 52 Weeks of Easy Knits book. And if you haven't watched her videos yet, go and check her out. She is just such a bubble of joy. Her laugh is so contagious and sweet. And she's just very well informed in anything fabric related. So I highly recommend her videos. And one thing she touched on in the book was about socks, it was not about socks, it was about cast-ons. How oftentimes, we as beginner knitters, the first cast-on we learn is the long tail cast-on, and that's it. But there are so many cast-on methods that are worth your while to learn how to make, and they aren't as scary as they seem. So I feel like with sock knitting, that's something I'll be able to I'm gonna have to stop saying that. I feel like with the 52 weeks of socks knitting and learning how to create socks, that's one technique I'll be able to dive into a little deeper in learning how to do many more cast-ons or cast-off methods. So I'm really excited about that. Actually, speaking of new techniques to me, with the Terrazzo Slipover, for the front, I think for all the bind-offs on this piece, the bind-off used was the Italian bind-off, which always looked so daunting to me, but I finally gave it a try and I think it worked out really well. So it gives this piece a very stretchy hem and a very polished finish, and it looks just really great. I'm glad I learned how to make this. It's a little bit more time consuming than a simple rib cast off, but it looks much better. And yeah, I'm glad I did this. I'm looking forward to doing it a bit more for the rest of the piece. So that's it for cast on cast offs and everything I had to say on that. Another thing I would like to focus on in the new year is diversifying the podcasts that I listen to, as well as the designers that I knit from, and encouraging smaller designers. I feel like there is just a plethora of, petite knit designs out there, which are fantastic. I've knit some and am currently knitting some. There's nothing wrong with that. She makes perfect everyday pieces. But I would like to branch out and find some more designers that aren't as well known, that make just as beautiful special garments to add to my repertoire. And yeah, I feel like it's very important to encourage artists and local artists as well, if one has the means to do so. And yeah, so that's something I would like to partake in more with the coming year with my new projects. So I think that's it for me today. This will have been a very short podcast. I wanted to take a second to thank every single one of you who have watched the first episode and who are still here for this one. And the new subscribers. I was overwhelmed by the response that I had on my first episode. So thank you so very much. And a special thank you to everybody who has commented on my last videos. I know I got a couple tips and words of encouragement, and it really means the world to me to feel so welcomed in your community. So again, thank you very much. And I look forward to chatting with you all again soon. Take care. Bye.